1990, I was working at UTSI and a university for graduate school and pretty high tech. And they'd have school groups come and they'd unload a bus of school kids and bring them in and show them the library. Nothing personal, but it was very okay. Put a book in there that you probably want to read. And then show them the mainframe computer, and then show them the beautiful look of the lake. And I thought, that's not a way to turn kids on to want to go to UTSI particularly. Nothing personal, Casey or Peter. You got to start somewhere. Meanwhile, while I was in the Air Force, I had done some messing around with liquid nitrogen. So at that time I said, well, when they come, we'll try to give them something of what science is about. And I ended up kind of developing a liquid nitrogen show. And which, about that same time, Tom Bentley and John Fox, who was a key member of this church a long time ago, and others started saying we ought to have a science center. And so we all kind of joined forces. And 5 years later, because we got business people involved, they said, we don't really know what you're up to, but raising the money is the easy part. Keeping it going is the hard part. So Joe Lester and Jim Devlin raised about $500,000 to build a science center. And Goodrich, the landing gear division of Goodrich, just happened to give us 3.5 acres. Wow. This is kind of a sad story because right here in Tullahoma, probably you don't know this, but Goodrich next door made the landing gear for, if you ever flown on an airplane, they probably made the landing gear of your airplane. The world's biggest airplane, our most advanced fighters are all made next door by our best neighbor. As of next month, they're done. They're going to Canada or something. So it's very sad, but they're still being a very great neighbor to us. So science, I've become obsessed, as you might observe. And I want to talk about science in general and how fast things are moving. And so I want to start sort of here with these guys. What's this guy's name?
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
And this guy is?
Stegosaurus.
Okay. What's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this?
They lived in two different eras.
Right. You're more likely to get eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex than he would be eating this. He was 300 million years ago. He was 90 million years ago. So it's more likely he would have eaten us or versus that. That's a long time. 300 million versus 90 or 70 million. And so things were kind of slow going there for a while, going from this guy to this guy. But as we see what's happening in science, in just a fraction of a second, things are moving so fast. And that's partly why I wanted to talk about this, because what it means to the world, the good part and the bad part. And personally, one of the reasons I got involved was because when I was in about 10 years old, anybody 10 years old here? When I was about 10 years old, I thought school was boring. I mean, I thought spelling and arithmetic and geography and penmanship and science are all the same. And then finally, a cousin took me aside and started saying some cool stuff about science, about space and things I'd never thought about, how a radio works and things like that. And all of a sudden I realized, hey, there is something here. And then I realized you got to learn that other stuff too before you do any science. So it kind of changed my life. Otherwise, I'd probably still be mowing yards or something. So it kind of changed my life, and very rewarding life and very interesting. So let's. This is kind of one thing we got started, the liquid nitrogen show. How cold is liquid nitrogen? Does anybody know?
Too cold.
Negative 320 something.
320 below zero. So here we have liquid nitrogen, and this is kind of interesting. Tom seems to forget, but what is room temperature here? Water freezes about here, and oxygen and nitrogen turn to a liquid at 320 below zero. What's the coldest place on Earth? What happened to my assistants? Did they all leave?
No, they're.
What's the coldest place on earth? He got it. How'd you know that? Golly, you must be learning a lot. 127 below zero is the South Pole.
What did he say? Because I don't know.
127 below zero is the South Pole. This is 320 below zero. And Tom, some of his research he did for the Atomic Energy Commission, he got down to almost 460 below zero. But he can't remember how close, but within a billionth of a degree of what does that mean? The molecules, definition of absolute zero is the molecules aren't moving at all. Well, these poor little molecules were kind of going like this, but they still were moving a little bit. So nobody's got the absolute zero. But anyhow.
Isn't that freeze time?
What's that?
Absolute zero that was frozen time.
Okay.
I would think.
Okay. So anyhow, we got, this is still above that, but anyhow, there we are.
Could you tell us how they make the liquid nitrogen?
If you ever got a bicycle and pumped up your bicycle tire, you pump and push those molecules closer together, and you feel the pump, it gets really hot. And so you cool down the pump, and then you keep pumping more, and you cool it down. You can't do this with a bicycle pump because it'll melt or something, but this is the idea. So they have a pump, we get it from Georgia or somewhere, pump, push those molecules close together, cool them down, push them close together until finally the oxygen turns to a liquid, and then finally the nitrogen turns into a liquid. It's relatively cheap. I get it at the weld shop. My dermatologist, I say, who happens to be the husband of Dr. Takagami, he gets his from the weld shop too. So what I'm doing now, for very little money, he gets a whole lot of money for doing what I'm getting ready to do. So anyhow, that's you get it at the weld shop, and it costs like $8 for a liter, so it's not too awfully expensive. But where'd they get it? From the air. Just got it from the air. So what is the air made out of? It's mostly nitrogen, the rest is oxygen. And so most of the nitrogen goes in your lungs, turns around and comes back out, except if you're a scuba diver. And if you go down, you come back too fast, the nitrogen stays in your bloodstream and you get the bends. But we don't have to worry about that too much. Unless you're a scuba diver and come back fast. So it grows about, how many times when it goes from a liquid to a gas? Assistance?
7.
What? You've got a lot to learn someday, don't you?
700.
700 times. And how does it grow? Really fast. Any liquid that goes from a liquid to a gas grows about 700 times. So that's why a steam engine works so good. A big old locomotive goes, they just blow water, it grows 700 times, and away you go. So here I've got liquid nitrogen.
Are you talking space that it grows?
Volume.
Volume, yeah, that's one.
Styrofoam cups work pretty good as insulators. And tennis containers, tennis ball containers work pretty good. Because when you buy tennis balls, they're pressurized. So this is a pretty good container. So I'll put some in here and see what we can do. How many times does it grow?
700.
700 times, really fast.
700 times.
700 times.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever try to boil water in a hurry?
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
It grows 700 times.
So if you're in a hurry,
It's gonna pop off.
wouldn't be good for cooking anything, but sure. Why don't they screw the lid on? Because it grows,
700 times.
and what would happen? It would blow up. So they don't screw the lid on, do they? That'd be dumb. So I go to Dr. Takagami, and what's her name, or her husband comes here? Cynthia. That's her husband. I don't know how many of you know that, but
Yo-yo.
he's my dermatologist, so he does what I'm getting ready to do and gets a whole lot of money for doing it. But, okay, how many of you like to lay out in the sun and get that nice suntan? Okay, I've done that with a bunch of school kids. This is kind of, I did that, and these black kids, you know, just as black as they can be, raised their hand. I said, really? And they, well, yeah. And I thought, ooh, I don't know guys that anymore, because they love laying out in the sun and getting on something. But anyhow, sun don't last anymore. But all the kids do it, and I did it, and then in high school I did it, and you think, boy, the girls are gonna love this tan, and all I do is burn myself, and they didn't pay attention. So I now go to the Dr. Takagami and sit in the waiting room with a lot of people just like me, and go in every 3 months. He said, oh, Mr. Boss, you have a lot of sun damage. It's gonna turn into cancer, and therefore, let's see what we can do about that. So you got a thing like this. This costs 98 cents. His cost $100 or more. That goes on top of my head, my back, on my face, or he has a Q-tip. Get that. Get this. Come back in 3 months. We'll do this again. That'll be $100, please. Or I don't do it at home because, or I'm not. If you have warts or something, I'm not going to do that. That's practicing medicine without a license. Plus, I don't know what I'm doing. Here's Lucy's favorite. You might notice Lucy has all these beautiful flowers. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Anybody have any ideas what we can do with this? Yeah. Still have to freeze it.
What did the flower do to you, man?
Oh no,
I've learned a few things in my life here. This makes a mess. Okay, well, it still looks pretty good. You ever put a flower in the refrigerator after your prom and you put your, well, that doesn't look so good, but here. That's what Lucy says. Beautiful flower. So let's get to some science here. What's this good for? Well, when you freeze something really fast, the ice crystals don't get big, they're very small. And therefore, this one chemist, I think he lived in Nashville, he thought, boy, if you make ice cream real small, it's going to taste better. You know, after you put it in the freezer, you get this big ice crystal that's kind of cruddy. So he made what product?
Dippin' Dots.
Dippin' Dots. And so he used this knowledge and became filthy rich. And Dippin' Dots are good. So what else is this science good for? So if you freeze something really fast, it doesn't break up on a microscopic level. It doesn't break up the cells. And certain things like blood and embryos and sperm and eggs can survive for a long time. In the news about a month ago, there was a woman who was like 23 years old, and she just gave birth to a 24-year-old embryo. So her baby was older than she was, technically, somehow. And then I met twins, or triplets, and these triplets were 8 years old, 10 years old, and 12 years old. The mother didn't want to have triplets all at the same time, so she had two of the eggs, the embryos frozen until she was ready to have them, and they were just normal, nice kids. So this whole thing is gets on the fringe of science where it's getting weird because, okay, if you got a lot of money, I don't know if we have anybody here, if you got a lot of money for $100,000 a year, after you die, You can have your body frozen liquid. Now, if you do it beforehand, that's sort of like be murder, so you gotta wait till you die. And for $100,000, you can have your head, your whole body done. And there's, 20, 30 people are doing that. If you got $1 billion, and who knows, most people, most scientists don't think it's ever gonna work, but who knows? In 10, 20, 50 years, you'd probably wake up with a heck of a headache or something, but, now, for those of you who can't afford that, for $50,000 a year, you can have your head done. Now, Ted Williams, I think it was his desire, and his family, one of his family members is having his head done. And Ted Williams is a famous baseball player, and they figure someday, reattach it, and he can go out there and get attached with the right body, don't just pick any old body. Some of the family doesn't think that's such a good idea, and therefore it's in court, maybe. Does anybody know the status of that? So anyhow,
It's in court still.
still in court, so just remember to pay the bill, because if they defrost it.
You were here.
I try to teach things they don't teach in school, like how to lay an egg. I teach that in school. Got an egg. Okay, we're at the bottom of an ocean air. How deep is this ocean of air? Yes.
320
Okay, that's the liquid nitrogen. It's 320 below zero. And the ocean of air is about 60 miles deep. If you want to go to outer space, it's way out there, but it starts about 60 miles up. As soon as you're above the air, 60 miles. It's pushing down very hard. How far is 60 miles? Here to Nashville is 60 miles. So every inch of your body is pushing down about 15 pounds on every square inch, and that's a lot. Pushing down here, pushing down here. Suppose I got what's inside here to not push back up. How could I do that?
Crack it.
Crack it?
Good job.
Boy, keep the air.
Let me do this. It's kind of a delicate balance, because it either goes in real slow or real fast. So laying an egg is not easy. So right now I'm slowing down the molecules inside so they aren't pushing up as hard. Put it in some hot water. Oh, man.
Oh.
I put it in some hot water to speed them back up, otherwise I got a mess on my hands. Oh, Imagine going to the emergency room with an egg stuck in your nose.
How did this happen, sir?
Okay, now, actually, I need a little help. I need you to cluck. 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 Here we go.
I didn't know what
The doctor wants me to have a snack about this time every day.
That's awesome.
Oh!
Can you explain the air, about the air inside that?
I try to teach things, what?
Can you explain about how that happened? The increase in length there? Wasn't it a little bigger when you pulled it out?
What's that?
The Cheetos.
Was it bigger?
It looked like it was.
Oh, no, it's sure colder.
Hey, you make
I would
Cheetos
say if
more.
anything, it would probably shrink.
Yeah, that's
But
what I
it's-
was thinking.
Yeah,
So if
but
it
not
holds
very
your
much.
nose, does it come out your ears?
What?
Just crunchy Cheetos or crunchy.
If I had broken eardrums, I guess I would.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
okay,
I'm not trying this at
I
home.
try to
Right.
teach practical things that you can use. For instance, did you ever go to a birthday party and try to get all the balloons in the car? That drives me crazy. You know, what can we learn here that we can use to get those darn balloons in the car? Yeah.
You can put that water stuff, like put it in a bowl, and then you string. It turns into small. It makes it small and cranky.
Okay, I need some help.
I will.
Okay, you come first, you give me a balloon, and then you second.
This one looks promising.
Some in here. Get the second.
Tell them what that flask is called.
With what?
Kentucky.
A doer.
That's
A doer is a fancy word for a thermos bottle,
DEWA on it.
and they can charge hundreds of dollars. Actually, I've used a thermos bottle, it works pretty good. So,
It's just a thermos ball in it.
and what that means, there's vacuum line. There's a bottle inside a bottle, and there's vacuum in between. Otherwise, it'll boil off immediately.
I know.
So, we're getting ready to go to the birthday party. My balloon here. Okay, you may sit down. Would you help me, please? Hand me a balloon. And you get in line. Nice little balloon. Okay, you may sit down. You next.
Go Trey.
Okay, come please. I'm gonna get some more juice here.
It's gonna come back.
It's trying to escape.
My record is 15 balloons. I just got tired of doing it. Is there another balloon in there? No?
There's one.
Get it, Garrett.
Grab that one.
So what happens if you get that on your hands?
What?
What happens if you get that on your hands? Is it not a big
If
problem?
you, there's a thing called film boiling. If I do it like that, it doesn't even touch my hand. If I go like that, it's sort of like removing a wart or something. But because it's sort of like an air hockey puck, it's dancing on a layer of gas, so it doesn't hurt. Okay, then you get to your party, and you pull the balloons out. Say happy birthday.
Oh my gosh.
It's baby.
Oh.
What is the white stuff?
That's a
That
moon
was
trick right there.
Okay, so this is kind of a sampling of one of the things we do. Actually, it's the most popular thing because it's kind of neat if somebody's seen it 50 times. Something always different happens. Pointing to, yes, sir.
What happens if the balloons are filled with helium instead of?
Well, what happens if they fill with helium, those that were, what happened at the Bel Air? What happened? Yes. What happens there?
Do you remember that?
What happened to it?
They float up to the ceiling.
And what did I call it?
A ghost
I called it a ghost balloon.
balloon. A ghost balloon.
I didn't do it here because usually I lose it in the car or something. But that works good, but it doesn't, helium, you have to get down near 460 before it turns to liquid, so it just gets smaller, but it doesn't disappear.
Super cool.
So this is kind of a sampling. We do also sound and a little bit of music, but not much because I don't know music. We do light and lasers, chemistry, once Rick starts helping here. Chemistry's coming, right?
Yes, sir.
And,
Negotiating the pay.
it's gonna be a while.
Somewhere between 0 and none.
We got electricity and magnetism and space and stuff like just. And oh, here's the exciting thing. When we got started, the Air Force kind of gave us lip service. But since then, in the last few years, the Air Force is getting very concerned that they can't get scientists and engineers that are U.S. citizens. You know, there's plenty in other countries, but we want Americans. And so they have started a STEM program, and then just in the last month or two, they turned it over to us. They had this big STEM program, 15 different activities, Lego League, 20 Lego League teams, and they had rockets and soaring and computers and robots, and that's part of the 15, which I can't remember them all. So we now have a new employee that's just picking up that from the Air Force. And then in addition, this is kind of too good to be true if you get Tullahoma paper. We just hired a guy from Charlotte, North Carolina. It was his dream to head up a thing like this. He has a degree in biology and zoology. He worked for Disney Wildlife for 5 years, and then he started his own reptile museum in Charlotte for 5 years. And then he saw this ad for the opening here, and he said, "That's what I want to do, come and build this place." And so that's what he's doing. So he hopes to build on the natural science as well as the physical science side of things. So things are popping there. One last thing I thought was kind of cool, since I want to get back into the science part. This is,
But you forgot a balloon in the liquid nitrogen.
we still got one, huh? It doesn't care. It's just like that guy's frozen head, it doesn't care.
Does the head shrink when you freeze it?
Imagine it's a little smaller.
Oh,
It
they
used to
keep
be.
it too.
Okay. Is that dimethyl sulfide on the shirt?
I got the idea for this from Breaking Bad. Have you ever saw that?
Yeah.
Breaking Bad, and I thought, heck, HOSC, heck. And then I looked up online, and that's an actual molecule.
Oh, it is?
And I was going to put the name there, but you'd be the only one who would care. So,
Dimethyl sulfide?
I don't know.
Sulfite group.
Yeah, okay, that's exactly right.
So the methyls aren't bound together,
It's
so
some
it's not
drug.
methyl.
Okay, back to my experiment. Okay. Close your eyes. What's that? Say, you can hear when it's coming towards you and going away from you.
Doppler effect.
Mr. Doppler figured that out, I guess. And he, so that's sort of interesting and cool. And how that works is sound waves are sort of like water waves. And here is a race car. You ever go to the race car track and you hear here comes a car.
I heard that before.
Really? At the race car? Really? I didn't know they even had a race car track around here. So this is what's happening. See, there's you standing there, and here the waves are real close together, and then when they go away, they're stretched out. Well,
Then a
That's
car.
okay.
It's gonna
okay, now we're getting into the storm season, and the radar people are gonna say, let's switch over to radar. What kind of radar? Doppler radar.
Doppler radar.
Yeah, you ever hear them say that on TV? Now you'll know what they're talking about. So they can look and say, the radar waves, when they bounce back, if they're closer together, they know what? It's coming at us. If they get further apart, it's going away from it. So they actually look and they can actually see a tornado. Part of the tornado is coming towards you fast, part of it's going that way. They can tell how fast
You
it's.
hide in the bathroom.
Yes.
And so they can tell that. And then I had a thing on my carotid artery, and how do they tell what fast it's going in there without having to go stick something in there? They listen to it, and when the sound waves are coming, they can listen to the blood going through my artery to tell how fast it's going. Now here's the part that I think really hurts my head. You've heard of the Hubble telescope? Well, Dr. Hubble became famous because he used a telescope, and everywhere he looked, the red, all these stars should be a certain kind of red, but the red was stretched out red. What's that mean? The waves of red weren't close together.
Means,
That
there's a
meant
wave coming.
all the planets, all the stars you looked at were moving away from each other. Everywhere, down there, up here, everywhere, they're moving away from each other. Well, what the heck's that mean? And what's worse, not necessarily worse, more interesting, I guess,
It
they're
means
speeding
a
up.
wave.
And nobody knows why, so it's up to you guys to figure out why, because you don't know. And then, okay, and so they are speeding up. What are they gonna run into? And if they run into something, what's on the other side of whatever they run into?
The
That hurts my
sun.
head. So this is something, they got black matter and dark matter and they're inventing things, but nobody really knows.
Isn't dark matter theoretical?
Well, yeah, nobody, they're looking for it, but I don't
Because
think
of the
anybody knows.
missing mass of the
Well,
universe.
they
Yeah.
call it dark.
I think there's just something wrong with the way we.
So, as you can know, I'm sort of obsessed with science. I call myself kind of a pseudo-scientist. To somebody like him, I'm pretty smart, but somebody that's a scientist, they, wow, he doesn't know anything.
I haven't
Yes.
said that.
Did you all
I'm
ever
a
manage to get the
scientist.
little planetarium to work, or is there too much light pollution that you got?
The
from waves?
observatory.
Oh, the observatory.
Yeah, we do have a plant, the part of that thing they gave us from the Air Force is a 15-foot diameter planetarium. And now part of the Air Force gave us some money. If you have a school or something, you want the planetarium, I'm not gonna do it, but we'll go and set it up for free in a gymnasium.
Inflatable one?
And they got all these inflatable, yeah. And it's very heavy and, but back to your question, it's too much light pollution here.
Yep.
So you see the planets of Jupiter and the surface. So we do that, and we'll probably start having star parties once a month. Every other year we've done it, the star party night would be cloudy. So we sometimes made it, never had it at all, but we'll be trying to do that again. So anyhow, I wanted to get into the good part of science. Now the bad part is, it took, from those dinosaurs 300 million years ago to 70 million years ago. Now what we're doing now, how long did it take to develop dogs from wolves to little tiny dogs to giant dogs? That took hundreds of years. Now with DNA and CRISPR, you know what CRISPR is?
Yes.
CRISPR is a way you can go in the DNA somehow, and this is where I don't know really what I'm talking about, but I'll pretend. You find whatever part of the DNA you want, and you move it over here, and quickly change evolution. And it changes. And CRISPR is just a magic way of, with scissors, go in the DNA, get out the bad part, put in the good part. Now, the one exhibit I just got at the Science Center, which I think is very cool. The new guy's a naturalist, he doesn't like it. But I have genetically modified fish. They used to be white, and they modified them so they're the colors of the rainbow. And I think it's very cool, and they glow in the dark. I think it's cool. It's science, whether you like it or not. That's what's happening. Well, he doesn't, you know, he wants to get back to nature. I don't think you like it, huh?
No, I like it, I think it's neat.
I mean, that's what's happening. Whether you like it or not, that's what's happening, so.
That's some very small
And-
scissors.
You know, we can pass laws, we aren't gonna do that. Well, that doesn't stop the bad guys. And the bad guys are pretty smart. And so that makes me think about all the other really cool things, our drones, or how cool they are. Well, have you seen, I don't know if you saw at the Olympics. Is that what, yeah, the Olympics, the drones. I mean, they have drones in the skies that can fly in patterns and write out words, thousands of them. And the military has thousands of them. They have cameras on them and weapons and all that stuff. But the bad guys can do that, and they're cheap. And that's scary. And I think about nanotechnology.
Oh, that's scary.
And nanotechnology, this is a meter. From here to here is a meter. So 1 billion little spaces between here and here, 1 billion is a nanoparticle. Well, those things, they're in cosmetics, they do great things, but they go right through your body. You can't filter them out, they're just everywhere, and that's really scary. And then I was reading the plastics. Boy, so science has been great to make our lives more comfortable, easier to learn things. Things are really happening fast. You know, in their lifetime, they have cell phones. I mean, a cell phone takes 100 different things, and I discovered a new use for a cell phone. When your hands are cold, they keep your hands warm. Add that to the thousands of things you can do with a cell phone. So, just in that short period of their lifetime, that's been happening. Another thing is drones, plastics. Boy, they've made our life nice. And boy, they're making a mess of things. You know, the ocean's full of plastics, and I read a thing, this might be fake news, I don't know, but they looked at bottled water, and the bottled water, most of them had microscopic plastic particles in the water.
That's real.
And what are we doing? So anyhow, that's the bad and the good. So it's up to you young guys to figure out what to do with that mess we're making.
It's long chain molecules, the plastics are. So we don't really know what effect they might have.
Well, maybe they'll get some new bacteria or something start eating plastic, and they'll take over the world. Okay, the other thing was artificial intelligence. You know, where computers can do thinking on their own, and Stephen Hawkins. You know, this isn't me saying this. That's who care. But Stephen Hawkins says he's really scared of artificial intelligence. One day will take over the world. All of a sudden, these computers will figure out how to do what they want. And I heard somebody was telling me there's an app where these computers, to make themselves more popular, it goes and knows how to make it. More people want to watch this site. And the artificial intelligence homed in on, say, well, if you do a bomb threat in a prison, more people will watch it. And all of a sudden that became news because the artificial intelligence just figured out that's a way to make things go that way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an example of where it may go. So it's kind of scary what we're doing. It's up to you young people to figure that out. Okay, am I about done?
Are you?
Sorry, yeah, I'm done.
Up to you.